So also I'd like to thank you for allowing me into your homes for this 17th episode of Esoteric Science Roundtable. This is a live call-in show, and we'll be taking calls between 30 and 40 past the hour today to discuss the topic of a new world order. This idea of a new world order has been expressed by different people throughout history. Sometimes it has been envisioned in the form of an ideal society or a utopia. Only in recent times has the concept of a new world order found its way into the thinking of the average man on the street. This concept of a new world order has taken on an entirely new meaning for us within the last 50 years or so. Anyone who can look at history from 100 years ago should be able to see the vast changes that have come about in the world since that time. With the Industrial Revolution, much restructuring took place. The balance of world power shifted, and lives of peoples were generally improved by mass production of many things to make life easier. Also, increased education of many became possible as less work was needed from individuals. If we look back to the end of the Second World War, we can point out how a new world order truly came into being at that time. The political ideologies of communism through Russia, socialism through the UK, and a democratic republic through the US became entrenched as the dominating worldviews of the time. Land was redistributed to create new nations or to build up or reduce borders of existing countries, such as the Marshall Plan for Japan and the dividing of Germany into East and West. Again, the average man was put in a position in which this new condition could not be ignored, and he was forced to see himself or his nation as part of a larger whole, or in some cases to bury his head in the sand of nationalistic pride and to deny a larger reality and changing conditions. Also, the inception of the United Nations came into being, and shortly after, the creation of the nation of Israel. The term New World Order has been tossed about and has gained notoriety increasingly since the end of the war, and has taken on a different meaning along two essential lines of thinking. The first is the concept of a New World Order that is what Hitler attempted, what the senior George Bush spoke about, and what has been interpreted and gleaned by the Patriot movement as the intent and purpose of a New World Order as it is presented by those currently in power. As a result of the interpretation of the so-called Patriot movement, a very dark and insidious view of a New World Order has been adopted by many in the mainstream. It is not difficult to understand if we educate ourselves in politics, their trends, and stated policies. We can find ample evidence that there is sketchiness in high places and that there are those that wish to see a sinister, domineering, big brother version of a New World Order come to pass. The subjugation of the many to the dictates and desires of the few, the very few. However, there is also a second view of how our New World Order will evolve and progress that is all-inclusive and holds in highest esteem the free will of man. This is not very well known, but can be the true basis for a New World Order if we choose it. Like it or not, we are in a New World Order, but we can change this view by changing our thinking. Just as Hitler took the ancient holy symbol of the swastika and reversed it, he made it anti-God, a symbol against God. So is a spiritual conception of a New World Order being altered and distorted by those who wish to enslave us. If I may borrow a few short quotes to demonstrate this point, I'd like to read a few segments from written by one of the members of the Church Invisible, an intimate worker with Christ and a citizen of the Kingdom of Heaven. And he's offered a true outline of a spiritual New World Order in which all are provided for. Even the evil forces which still remain active hide their greedy purposes behind a spurious desire for world unity, world harmony, and right human relations. And that is a key thing to understand, that, again, the evil forces which still remain active hide their greedy purposes behind a spurious desire for world unity, world harmony, and right human relations. The factor that must and will relate the principle of conflict to the expression of harmony and bring about the new world order, the new civilization and culture, is the trend and the voice of public opinion and the opportunity offered to people everywhere to bring about social security and right human relations. It is not the government of any nation which will bring this about, but the innate rightness of the people themselves when they have been educated to see the issues clearly, the relationships which should be established, and the immense subjective unity of mankind. This will not come about without an intensive period of planned education, of a truly free press and radio, both free to speak the exact truth and to present the facts as they occur, without being controlled or influenced by governmental interference, pressure groups, religious organizations, or by any dictating parties or directors. The evil in the world, and that which is primarily guilty of swaying the masses at this time, is focused through a few powerful men or groups of powerful men. No country is free from this control or from this attempted control. These powerful groups are swayed in their turn by the forces of evil, forces which were not sealed in their own place, because a plan of love and light and power still lacks positive and worldwide presentation. The spiritual opportunity is, however, emerging with increasing clarity in the minds of thinking men and women, even if it is not expressed by them in orthodox terms or in recognized or spiritual terms. Perhaps a clear statement of that which the active spiritual forces are seeking to bring about may prove helpful. If the forces of evil are active and organized, the forces of light are equally active, but not so well organized. The basic goal is the freedom and the liberation of mankind. But the spiritual workers are handicapped by the fact that men themselves must make free choice and decision in order to be free. They can only be liberated when they, as individuals and later as groups, liberate themselves from the expressed thought control of the powerful, domineering groups and from the fears which these groups intentionally engender. Freedom can never be conferred through totalitarian methods. Liberation cannot come through a dictator or dictating groups. A realization of the manner in which the hierarchical forces are working, and a recognition that all men are today immersed in vital spiritual happenings may serve to encourage the faithful and give a quickening vision to those who are struggling on behalf of human freedom. And some of that merits rereading again. As far as we need to free ourselves from the thought control of the powerful dominating groups and from the fears which these groups intentionally engender. Freedom can never be conferred through totalitarian methods. Liberation cannot come through a dictator or dictating groups. The prevalent spirit of expectancy and of a truly divine discontent are the guarantees that this second spiritual event is a real factor in our time. Many factors contribute to this awakening. In most countries, through the radio, through the newspapers, through books, magazines, and travel, through lectures and forums, and simplified human intercourse, to which the automobile and the airplane have greatly contributed, men everywhere are free to know and to understand. This is, of course, not true of those countries where the freedom of the human spirit is attacked. There are two ways in which that freedom of choice can be infringed. First, as in Russia, by keeping the citizenry in ignorance of world affairs. And secondly, by giving them biased news and misinformation, or a garbled or distorted slant on world affairs, as in the case in most other countries, particularly in the United States. An instance of this can be seen in the fact that the Arabs never got a true hearing in the American newspapers or on the radio. The American people were pressured, I think that is the word you use, into an acceptance of the Zionist position, the motive being oil and mineral riches. And again, they're referring in that last segment as far as the Zionist movement and the American people being pressured into warming up to the idea of the state of Israel. But the mentality of man is daily developing, and his ability to grasp world affairs is growing. That is one of the greatest spiritual events and is the foundational fact which makes the life of the soul and the growth of the intuitive perception possible on a large scale. This is a byproduct of the clash of the ideologies, but is a true and beautiful result of the universal educational system which, faulty though it may be and is, has made it possible for all men to read, to write, and to communicate with each other. But humanity has not chosen to exert itself in this redemptive activity, and for thousands of years has been controlled by that which is material, and has thus created the broad and easy way which leads to the place where another kind of evil dwells, an evil which is not indigenous to our planet, an evil with which it was never intended that men should deal. For untold eons, the hierarchy has stood like a shield guarding humanity, but with the coming of a greatly increased mental development, with the repudiation of the hierarchy by the bulk of humanity, and by the prostitution of religion to material ends and narrow theological and mental tenets, the hierarchy has been forced, much against its will, to withdraw some measure of its protecting power, though not all of it, fortunately for mankind. The way to the door where evil dwells was unimpeded, and humanity opened wide the door. The entrance for what might be regarded as cosmic evil was first opened in the decadent days of the Roman Empire, which was one of the reasons why Christ chose to manifest in those days. Was opened wider under the corrupt regime of the kings of France, and in our own day has been opened still wider by evil men in every land. And again, it does mention the decadent days of the Roman Empire, and that was one of the main reasons, again, why Christ chose to manifest at that particular time. And if we see what's going on today, there are a lot of people that are pointing to the fact that those that wish to enslave us, those at the very highest points of power that work behind the scenes to manipulate world affairs, that some people allege that they're trying to have a revised Roman Empire, and that that's their goal, that some of them feel that they have been, through their bloodlines and what have you, that they've descended down, and that they have, by birthright, it's their duty, their obligation, what have you, to restore the Roman Empire. If I could borrow a little bit more from another book called Ponder on This, the major weapon now being used by the combined forces of evil is chaos, disruption, lack of established security, and consequent fear. The entire rhythm of international thinking has to be altered, and that constitutes a slow and arduous task. The evil personalities which in every country are responsible for the chaos and uncertainty have eventually to be replaced by those who can work in cooperation with the rhythm of the seventh ray, or with the incoming age of Aquarius, and thus provide ordered beauty. The political regimes of the world need orienting to each other. It has never been the divine plan that all nations and races should conform to some standard political ideology or be reduced to a uniform general form of government. Nations differ. They have different cultures and traditions. They can function adequately under varying and distinct governments. Nevertheless, they can at the same time attain a unity of purpose based upon a genuine desire for the true welfare and progress of all men everywhere. And again, that does serve to be read again, as far as it has never been the divine plan that all nations and races should conform to some standard political ideology or be reduced to a uniform general form of government. Nations differ, they have different cultures and traditions, they can function adequately under varying and distinct governments. And that's something to keep in mind firmly, that the idea of the New World Order that's been bandied about much in the mainstream lately is an idea that we're going to have to submit to one political ideology for the entire globe, possibly one religion, one choice, no options. And again, it's never been the divine plan that all nations should have to submit to one form of government. We have the different racial types, we have the different cultures in the different countries, and each one is developing the type of government and the type of culture that's suitable for those peoples in those places. Now, true, like in the United States, we have an amalgamation of different peoples, but the American ideal is what brings all those people together. And that ideal is right and good for us, and some of the other races may not quite be ready for the apparent and supposed freedoms that we have in this country. Now, if I could borrow some statements from the book called Serving Humanity, which, by the way, is not a cookbook. The objective of those who are entrusted with the straightening out of the world is not the imposition of democracy upon the entire world, or to force Christianity upon a world of diversified nations, or of diversified religions. It is surely to foster the best elements in any national government to which the people may subscribe, or which they intelligently endorse. Each nation should recognize that its form of government may be suited to it and quite unsuited to another nation. It should be taught that the function of each nation is a perfecting of its national life, rhythm, and machinery so that it can be an efficient co-partner with all of the other nations. It is equally essential that the New World Order should develop in humanity a sense of divinity and of relationship to God, yet with no emphasis upon racial theologies or separative creeds. The essentials of religious and political beliefs must be taught, and a new simplicity of life inculcated. Today, these are lost in the emphasis laid upon material possessions, upon things, and upon money. The problem of money will have to be faced. The problem of the distribution of wealth, whether natural or human, will need careful planning and a compromise reached between those nations which possess unlimited resources and those who have few or none. The problem of the varying forms of national government must be faced with courage and insight. The restoration, psychological, spiritual, and physical, of mankind must constitute a primary responsibility. The sense of security must be put on a firm basis, the basis of right relationship, and not the basis of force. Men must feel secure because they are seeking to develop international goodwill and can trust each other, and are not therefore dependent upon the strength of their armies and fleets. And that's maybe a good point to bring up as well. We're under this homeland security situation these days, and that is not security. That is infringement on our free will, our mobility, and our liberties. A new world order is possible, and there are certain steps which need to be taken if the vision of this new world is to enter into the realm of accomplished fact. Certain angles of the vision I can, with the greatest brevity, point out to you. I can indicate the signposts on the way to the future world order. I shall find myself in the position of assuring you at the same time that every step of that way will entail a fight, the overturning of that which is old and loved, and the destruction of that which is inhuman, selfish, and cruel. I shall have to impress upon you the prime and initial necessity to overthrow the entrenched forces of aggression as they function today through the medium of the totalitarian powers. Now again, I really have to emphasize this point. I'm probably going to read this a couple of times because this is so important. I shall have to impress upon you the prime and initial necessity to overthrow the entrenched forces of aggression as they function today through the medium of the totalitarian powers. Now, keeping firmly in mind that this person who's speaking these words is a member of the hierarchy, is a member of the Church Invisible, a modern-day disciple of Christ who does work intimately with Christ, and this person, in his own words, is telling you that we must fight totalitarianism in no uncertain terms. And again, the whole idea that communism is just a fanciful thing, and the McCarthyism days, and the Reds are under the bed, and all that kind of thing. That might be taking it a bit too far in some ways, but it is important to keep in mind that there definitely are totalitarian powers that have infiltrated themselves in many areas throughout the world, and we need to be firmly aware of that. And again, as it states here, I shall have to impress upon you the prime and initial necessity to overthrow the entrenched forces of aggression as they function today through the medium of the totalitarian powers. First, I would ask you all to ponder on the vision of this new world order, preserving an open mind and realizing that this new mode of living hovers over humanity and will materialize when selfishness is defeated, right human relations are correctly envisioned, envisaged, and the ideal of this new world order is divorced from all nationalistic concepts and aspirations. It will not be an American world, or a French world, or a British world, or a totalitarian world. It will be the outcome of the civilization which is passing, and the culture which is the flower of that civilization, but at the same time, it will be neither of them. It will be a human world based on right understanding of correct human relations, upon recognition of equal educational opportunities for all men, for all races, and all nations, and upon the fundamental realization that God hath made of one blood all peoples upon the earth. It will be a world in which racial distinctions and national unities will be recognized as enriching the whole and as contributing to the significance of humanity. Such distinctions and nationalities will be preserved and cultured, not in a separative isolation, but in the realization that the many aspects of human unfoldment and differentiation, produce one noble whole, and that all the parts of this whole are interdependent. All will comprehend their relation to each other in one progressive synthetic human endeavor, and the enterprise of human living will produce an interior work which will flower forth in the production of a beauty and richness which will distinguish humanity as a whole. And this all will share with wisdom and a planned sufficiency, offering to the planetary life and to each other that which they have to contribute. This will be made possible because the whole of mankind will be recognized as the essential unit and as being of greater spiritual importance than the part. This is no idle and visionary dream. It is happening already. Embryonic movements towards this world synthesis are already being made. There is a dream of federation, of economic interdependence, and of religious unity, plus social and national interrelation, which is rapidly taking form. First in the minds of men, and then in experiments. There is a tie of united purpose felt by many in the political and economic fields, which is no wish, fulfillment, or fantasy, but indicative of an emerging reality. It is felt and recognized by thinkers everywhere. It finds itself distorted and parodied in the concept of the superstate, with which the dictators of the world glamour their peoples. But the links are being forged which will draw down the vision and precipitate the patterns of things as they should be in this next world cycle. When this vision of the New World Order has been grasped by the men and women of goodwill throughout the nations and has become part of the life and mind of every disciple and aspirant, then the next step will be to study the factors which are hindering its materialization. For this, a broad tolerance and an unprejudiced mind are essential, and these qualities are rare in the average student and the small-town man. Past national mistakes must be faced, selfishness in the spheres of both capital and labor must be recognized, blindness, nationalistic ambitions, adherence to ancient territorial demands and assumed rights, inherited possessiveness, the refusal to relinquish past gains, disturbances in the religious and social areas of consciousness, uncertainties as to the realities of subjective and spiritual life, and the insincerities which are based on glamour and fear. All these factors are woven into the life pattern of every nation without exception and are exploited by the evil forces and evaded by the well-meaning but weak people of the world. These must all be seen in their true perspective. The eyes of the people who seek to work under the forces of light must be lifted from the world of effects into the world of causes. There must be appreciation of the factors which have made and conditioned the modern world, and those predisposing factors must be recognized for what they are. This sizing up of the situation and this recognition of blame and responsibility must preface every attempt to bring down into active being the New World Order. The New World Order will not come as an answer to prayer or by the passive wishful thinking and expectation of the peace-loving idealist and mystical visionary. They point the way and indicated the needed objective. It will come when the mystic and the man of vision awakens to the need of the hour and comes down from the world of dreams, of theories, and of words into the hard arena of daily and public life. He must be willing to fight for that which he desires and knows to be good and true and right, and must stand firm against those who seek to distort the vision and to arrest its appearance, arming for battle so that final disarmament may be possible. And that's something very key to keep in mind as well. Arming for battle so that final disarmament may be possible. Now, we can be armed in the literal sense, and we can be armed in the figurative sense. Now, certainly, many of you are aware that the Second Amendment is very much under attack, and whether you choose to own a gun yourself, you should fully well realize that the Second Amendment is really one of the, if not the only thing, that's keeping our republic free to some degree from those that wish to enslave us. And that is what's held them in abeyance and held them in check, so to speak, up until our current times. And that's why you see an unprecedented attack on Second Amendment rights. And whether you choose to own weapons yourself or not, it's something to keep firmly in mind that if you enjoy your particular political views, your particular form of life, your lifestyle, your career, your religious choice, or your non-choice of religions, whichever, arming for battle so that final disarmament may be possible. The hindrances which block the appearance of the future world order appear to be many, but they can all be summed up in one word: selfishness. National, racial, political, religious, and individual selfishness. The time factor must govern as never before the activities of men of goodwill and the work of those whose task it is to educate not only the children and the youth of the world, but also to train humanity in the major undertaking of right human relations and in the possibilities immediately ahead. The note to be struck and the word to be emphasized is humanity. Only one dominant concept can today save the world from looming economic fight to the death, can prevent the uprising again of the old materialistic systems of the past, can stop the reemerging of the old ideas and concepts, and can bring to an end the subtle control by the financial interest and the violent discontent of the masses. And let me just go over that last line again. To end the subtle control by the financial interest and the violent discontent of the masses. Now here again is a reference to the fact that our monetary system is controlled and manipulated, and that it is not a money system for the many, it's a money system for the few. And until that money system changes, we're still going to be under the power, so to speak, somewhat, of those that wish to enslave us. A belief in human unity must be endorsed. This unity must be grasped as something worth fighting and dying for. It must constitute the new foundation for all of our political, religious, and social reorganization, and must provide the theme for our educational systems. Human unity, human understanding, human relationships, human fair play, and the essential oneness of all men, these are the only concepts upon which to construct the new world, through which to abolish competition and to bring to an end the exploitation of one section of humanity by another and the hitherto unfair possession of the earth's wealth. As long as there are extremes of riches and poverty, men are falling short of their high destiny. The kingdom of God can appear on earth, and this in the immediate future. But the members of this kingdom recognize neither rich nor poor, neither high nor low, neither labor nor capital, but only the children of the one Father, and the fact, natural and yet spiritual, that all men are brothers. Here lies the solution of the problem with which we are dealing. The spiritual hierarchy of our planet recognizes neither capital nor labor. It recognizes only men and brothers. The solution is, therefore, education, and still more education, and the adaptation of the recognized trends of the time to the vision seen by the spiritually minded and by those who love their fellow men. In every nation there are those who see a better vision of a better world, who are thinking and talking and planning in terms of humanity, and who realize that those who form the various groups, political, religious, educational, labor, are men and women, and essentially, if unconsciously, brothers. They see the whole world and are working towards an inevitable unification. They recognize the problems of the nations, great and small, and the difficult situation in which the minorities today find themselves. They know that the use of force produces results which are not truly effective, for the cost is far too great, and are usually transient. They realize that the only true hope is an enlightened public opinion, and that this must be the result of sound educational methods and just and exact propaganda. Okay, now I'm going to speak a bit about one topic here that's going to be a bit controversial. This might be the most controversial statement I make in my show, but There is no counsel of perfection to give the world or any solution which will carry immediate relief. To the spiritual leaders of the race, certain lines of action seem right and to guarantee constructive attitudes. The United Nations, through its assemblies and committees, must be supported. There is as yet no other organization to which man can hopefully look. Therefore, we must support the United Nations, but at the same time, let this group of world leaders know what is needed. The general public in every nation must be educated in right human relations. Above all else, the children and the youth of the world must be taught goodwill to all men everywhere, irrespective of race or creed. Time must be given for the needed adjustments, and humanity must learn to be intelligently patient. Humanity must face with courage and optimism the slow process of building the new civilization. An intelligent and cooperative public opinion must be developed in every land, and the doing of this constitutes a major spiritual duty. This will take much time, but if the men of goodwill and if the spiritual people of the world will become genuinely active, it can be done in 25 years. The World Economic Council, or whatever body represents the resources of the world, must free itself from fraudulent politics, capitalistic influence, and its devious scheming. It must set the resources of the earth free for the use of humanity. This will be a lengthy task, but it will be possible when the world need is better appreciated. An enlightened public opinion will make the decisions of the Economic Council practical and possible. Sharing and cooperation must be taught instead of greed and competition. There must be freedom to travel everywhere, in any direction, and in any country. By means of this free intercourse, members of the human family may get to know each other and to appreciate each other. Passports and visas should be discontinued because they are symbols of the great heresy of separateness. The men of goodwill everywhere must be mobilized and set to work. It is upon their efforts that the future of humanity depends. They exist in their millions everywhere, and when organized and mobilized, represent a vast section of the thinking public. Now, to borrow from the last book I'm going to read from, called The Externalization of the Hierarchy, if I could finish up briefly with these last lines. First, I would ask you all to ponder on the vision of this new world order, preserving an open mind and realizing that this new mode of living hovers over humanity. Actually, I've already read that. Let me go on. I have said also that the forces of light are nearing the earth and that the hierarchy is coming steadily closer to mankind. These basic events, these subjective happenings, and these spiritual determinations under the law of action and reaction have evoked a more rapid response from the forces of evil present in our planetary life than from humanity. Certain great forces or embodied energies of darkness and of evil organized themselves and took the needed steps, so they believed, to prevent humanity from stepping onward into the light. They availed themselves of the weakness, the selfishness, and the self-interest of man. Just as the good can stimulate the latent goodness in mankind into expression, so evil can evoke greater evil from those susceptible from innate weaknesses and from the unthinking and emotional. The forces of light work only with men's souls. Lies, false teaching, evil propaganda, a war of nerves, the culture of fear, the organization of groups and of isolated workers in every nation pledged to undermine righteousness and distort the truth went rapidly forward. Great and fundamental truths were twisted to meet the ends of the evil workers. And so, just to wrap up quickly, those with insight, intuition, and understanding are well aware of the nefarious goals of those that wish to manipulate and enslave us. But instead of accepting the negative version of a new world order that is anti-God, we can work together to ensure that a new world order springs forth that is all-inclusive, respectful of nations, and especially of individual free will. What we need to collectively consider is that a time will come when the infighting of those that wish to enslave us will topple and crumble under the mighty weight of goodwill and right human relations growing between the sons of man. The ultimate greed, materialism, and selfishness of those in power behind the scenes will crush and destroy them. The factions working to oppress the masses only work together to meet their own ends and goals. They share and exchange only so that their way finds an outlet for their personal gain. We must remain confident that the feuding and bickering among those that seek to limit our truth and expression of divinity will destroy each other and themselves, so that the door where evil dwells will be permanently sealed. Our job is to create with the divine, as those that wish to enslave us are forced out, the infrastructure of the old regime will remain. We must build upon the already existing foundations of a new world order and of the United Nations. We must make these organizations work for us, the many, and not as it is now, prostituted towards selfishness and materialism. We must rip the reins of the New World Order away from the greedy and the self-serving. We must fight to regain what is our birthright, our free will. And so it looks like I have a couple of calls. I'm going to go ahead and check with the folks out there and see what their opinion is on this matter. Hello, caller.
Hey, Corey.
Hi, how are you? Go ahead.
Great information as usual.
Thank you.
Only thing I've tried, it's hard to follow you sometimes.
I'm sorry, it's hard to.
It's hard to follow you sometimes.
Because of.
Well, just when you just read, kind of.
Yeah, I know. I really have to struggle with that, and I really try to get away from reading too much from books. But this particular information is so valuable, and again, as I've stated, whether you choose to believe it or not, these books that I'm reading from, they're written by a woman named Alice A. Bailey, but she had a bit of help from an individual who is a member of the hierarchy, so-called, and who works intimately with Christ. And so his words in this instance, I thought, were very, very important, because there are many people, there are some folks out there that have alleged that Alice Bailey's organization is part of the nefarious ends for a New World Order. And so I want to emphasize by reading directly from these books that that is indeed not the case, and that the New World Order is here, but different individual nations need to keep their own forms of government and their own cultures intact, and there doesn't need to be a homogenous one world order where everything is plain vanilla and it's just a bland world. I mean, nobody would care for that.
Well, the one part that I was real clear on, well, kind of anyway, was the money part, where you kind of said we're not really going to experience freedom until we get rid of this money system and go to something new.
Correct.
That just scares me to death when you say that.
Well, I do commend all the other folks.
I mean, I see it the exact opposite. I say when the New World Order money system, the big people in power are not going to give us some great money supply of utopian freedom, and I mean, that's what's going to enslave us, is the New World Order money system.
Well, again, we have to understand. Put the whole world on one
currency, and you got control.
Well, we have to understand, that's true, I agree. We have to understand the nature of that money system and understand how we can change it. How did that money system come into effect? How did it become a leech onto our system in this country, in the world for that matter? And what is the true nature of these organizations? The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization. What is the true nature of these organizations? Why is there no accountability? Until we get some accountability out of these folks, true, they are going to try to take advantage of us.
Well,
is there anything else you could add?
It's an evolving money system.
I'm sorry?
It's an evolving money system. It's been growing from way back into
well,
what
it's becoming, a debt money system where we put ourselves in
control mechanism.
I'm sorry?
Well, it's growing from what it was way back into a centralized control system. You put world banks in each country. You centralize the money supply there. You just keep centralizing the money supply. That's the goal. It's a long-term.
I realize that's the case, and I realize that's what we're facing right now. But the more people become aware of that, the more people can do their little part to stand up to it. And I would say that examples that we have of all these mass demonstrations, anytime there's some kind of a World Economic meeting, you've got a lot of people meeting to counter it and to protest against it. And that's a sign of future progress for us.
I like your optimism. I don't share it, but
oh no, we got it. If we want to take this country back, and there's other folks on Access to talk about this, we have to be willing to stand up. We have to be willing to do everything at our disposal to make people aware of what's going on first and foremost, and then educate people in what they can do, or motivate people to find ways in their own areas, because there are a lot of people that are thinking this way, and that's going to be the key thing to start with, is changing thought, changing public opinion that yes, we can do something. Get rid of that powerless.
Well, not even changing thought to even give a rat's behind.
Well, again, but don't feel limited. Don't feel powerless.
Well, we kind of got a prototype in Argentina. What do you think about what happened there? Where they went?
Well, one thing I could tell you for sure, there's certainly a media blackout. They don't want to talk about anything about that situation. And look at how those people are rioting down there. If we try to go to some kind of cashless society where, how are you going to have a garage sale?
Those people should be heroes. Those people should be heroes.
Well, they're definitely
on Access, man. That's a great idea. Get some footage and say, hey, man, this is the New World Order money supply coming right to your doorstep. And these people have balls. I hope to God we have those kind of balls.
Well, I pray very much for the people in Argentina, and I hope that people here in the States are aware of the situation, that they are praying and adding their strength to the struggles of those people, of our brothers down in
You and a handful
Argentina.
of people are the only people that even know about it. I mean,
Well, again, I know a lot of people aren't aware of it, but hopefully through just this little spiel that we're doing here and different various other ways, people can become more aware of it. And yes, the people in Argentina are struggling because of the monetary system down there, and
they're rebelling, right?
I'm sorry?
They're rebelling, right?
Yes, they are. Well, they're rioting because they don't have any money, and again, their currency is worth next to nothing. So they're basically on the verge of poverty. Everybody there, or in poverty. And of course, when you get to when you're forced in those kind of positions, you're going to lash out. And I do think that there is a possibility that some of the people here in our country may have to get knocked down to that level that they are in Argentina for them to fully awaken to what's going on and to realize that, hey, we need to get together on this kind of thing.
Well, I share your optimism on a lot of points, Corey, and it's a joy watching you, and keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice evening. Take care. Hello, caller.
Hey there, how you doing, man?
Good, yourself?
Good. It seems to be a bad connection here. Not too loud, you are. Can you turn up your volume there a bit?
There's not a whole lot I can do.
Well, that's better
believe.
now that you're talking a little closer. I appreciate that.
Okay. You
Here's
can also
what
probably turn
I'm
up your
wondering, my
television
friend.
as well if you need to.
Here's what I'm wondering, my friend.
Sure. Go ahead.
I don't know what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard you read out of all these books. And
Well, I have been the past 2 weeks, but again, they're espousing pretty much what I believe. That's why I am reading from the books. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be sharing that with you folks.
Well, you made a comment about taking our country back.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, how does taking our country back mean that we give our country to the world? I'm confused by that thought.
Okay, again, there is a new world order now. We cannot deny that fact. There's
What
a
is
new
this
world order.
new world order?
I'm sorry?
What evidence do you have to suggest that there is a new world order? What's wrong with the current order?
Well, the current order is a new world order. It's been that way since the Second World War, for sure, but even before then. And you see the forces behind the scenes that are structuring this new world order and that are bringing it into the forefront.
What are they trying to do? They're just trying to accumulate power? Is this new? How is that a new idea?
Oh, it's not a new idea whatsoever. It's a very old idea. That's my point, is that these people that have been behind the scenes for thousands of years, literally, have been using an idea of a new world order, which is basically a spiritual idea, and turning it into an anti-spiritual ideology based on a totalitarian form of thinking.
But your premise is that everything is good how is your premise that by ridding ourselves of the evil people, we will be left with nothing but good? How is that able to stand logically? I don't understand that. That doesn't.
Well, I'm not
sense.
saying we rid ourselves of the evil people entirely.
You
I
said
mean,
they
they
would
have to be
destroy
relegated
themselves.
to. I'm sorry?
You said they would destroy themselves.
Yes, I do feel that way, because if you're more aware of what's going on behind the scenes, there are groups of powerful men and powerful individuals at the very tops.
What, like George W. Bush? He's one of them?
Well, I'd go even a little higher than that, but yes, he's a player in there.
Like Ted
I would say
Turner?
he's an example of a very greedy person that's taking advantage of his position of power.
He's greedy
And-
okay. Continue.
Yes, I definitely would say that. And I would say that those people, the infighting going on between these different crowds, is going to be the demise of these people. They're very greedy people. When you have ultimate greed, when an average person cannot comprehend ultimate greed, the greed that these people have, and to the degree that they are greedy.
Are they like superhuman? Is this what brings them these traits? Is this greed that corrupts and creates monsters?
Well, okay, these people, a long time ago, a form of magic moved from one place to another, really in ancient days. And this form of magic has passed its time. It's outmoded, it's outgraded, and it's outdated. But these people still hold on to this practice, and it's become distorted. And they use these methods, whether you choose to believe this or not. I'm just giving this for public information. Those people in high places use this distorted form of magic, this distorted form of ritual and ceremonial magic, which is known as Satanism to the average person. This Satanism that they use. You do sacrifices and things like that. So there are those that, they use these ritual and ceremonial methods to gain power and to stay in power.
So would you contend that they are actually manipulating evil, or are you contending that there is no such thing as evil?
Evil is all man-made, aside from what I term cosmic evil. I'm sorry?
So somehow their worship of Satan is only intellectual. It's not authentic. There's no...
No, it's very authentic. There are generational Satanists. There are many people that have remained in power behind the scenes for thousands of years because they've been able to manipulate people.
But they're either worshiping something that's real or something that doesn't exist. Are you contending that they worship something that's real, which is Satan, or are you contending that they worship some perversion of mankind?
No, I think they do worship evil entities, so to speak. I don't believe in a Satan per se, or an old scratch or a cloven-hooded creature that's a devil. I don't believe in that myself personally. But there is evil, so-called, and that they choose to work with that. Anything that's separative in nature, that's materialistic, that's non-inclusive, that's greedy, that's basically satanic. You can call it that. Anything that's inclusive, that expresses love, that expresses goodwill and right human relations is of God. Now, true, God did create everything, and all evil and good is all part of our whole creation, and so we have to take that in consideration. But if we understand that what evil is and how it originated, and that man is the originator of evil, that we've created because we live again and again, there's karma and reincarnation, and so we have accumulated and amassed evil by our actions in the past, and we are just now coming to have a comeuppance to where we have to pay for that.
But here's where my problem. I have many problems with it. Here's where a significant problem kicks in.
Go ahead.
If you're contending that man, right, or if evil comes from man, if it's a outcropping of mankind or of this universe or whatever, how could you then follow that logically through to conclude that it would ever be possible for man to overcome evil himself if it's a part of all of our nature?
Because it's our job here to refine our natures, to refine matter through spirit. And so by doing that, by virtue of doing that, and esoteric science is one great way in which to demonstrate the expression of spirit through matter, through our physical natures, and that we must refine and we must negate that evil that we created. We must accept that, yes, it's evil that we created, that's human evil, but we must take responsibility for what we've done and refine and get past what we've done in the past.
Well, this is nothing new, though. I mean, the thought, to throw out the thought that man can refine himself and make himself perfect is all around. But then when we look at man, there is never evidence of man actually accomplishing that. I
disagree entirely. I'm going to let you go, so I have other callers on the line, but I'm going to get some other folks and talk with them a bit. But that's not true. Many people have perfected themselves, and Jesus, through Christ, is a great example of that. Have a nice evening. Thank you for your call. Hello, caller?
Hello, yeah, I'd just like to say, I'll tell you about what I need to worship.
Hello? You're on the air.
Are you there?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you, I worship one thing, and that'd be my foot in your ass.
All right, you have a nice evening, gentlemen. Hello, caller.
Hi, how are you this evening?
Good, yourself?
Fine. I would like to present to you something that I personally believe is getting ready to happen, at least in the United States of America. But contrary to what is said publicly, I do not believe that this so-called New World Order is really going to become entrenched in the United States of America. Most of the television programs avoid addressing what is actually within the United States of America, and that is a body of citizens who profess a belief in Christianity and Jesus Christ and love of family, and also the slogan that have been used to resist tyrannies in other countries, and that is resistance to evil is service to God. I believe that history will ultimately repeat itself. Mm-hmm. I've been traveling for about the past 2.5 weeks, just talking to people, because I've been very much affected and inspired by some of these programs talking about the New World Order. And,
if I'm not mistaken, I've heard you speaking on Alex Jones's show.
Well, Alex Jones has been very helpful to me, sir.
Have you called into his show previously?
I beg your pardon?
Have you called into his show previously?
I'm sorry?
Have you called into his show previously?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I recognize your voice. I thought I recognized you, but go ahead, please continue.
Well, I'm just a citizen, sir, that's trying to just...
Well, I commend you because, again, I've heard you on the air several times espousing your beliefs, and you're intelligent and you're well-spoken, and you are bringing out some good points that people need to realize, and I do commend you for that.
Well, you're very, very welcome. But one of the things that gives me hope,
yes,
and that is that I am listening and meeting people that are everyday citizens that work, that know enough not to give up their firearms.
Right.
And I firmly believe that if it ever gets to a point wherein the so-called concentration camps start becoming more well-known. I had an aunt that was a German citizen during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
She knew nothing about the concentration camps as a child.
Most German citizens didn't. That's very true.
You know, I asked her. I myself am letting people know in smaller towns about the medical experiments that have been done on our prisoners here in the state of Texas. I am horrified. I'm 55 years old, sir.
Mm-hmm.
At 12 years old, in the middle of the 1950s, I was reading The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. And what I am seeing in the United States of America, we are actually of the mentality of Germany during the Third Reich. And being 55 years old, I'm really, really concerned because, you see, as I get older, this mentality, this death mentality, starting with abortion, and now we're going to do mercy killings, and now we're going to get rid of the senior citizens. My hope is in that body of Christian people who will resist this tyranny, and they will not do it with tongue, sir. They will do it with the Bible and the bullet. And they will be inspired as our forefathers were inspired by the speeches of Patrick Henry and the spiritual religious principles of Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin. Now, I only see one possible solution short of revolution, and that is the abolishment of any legislation in every state in this union that would eliminate the State Bar Acts and eliminate the judicial tyranny that was established by lawyers, corrupt lawyers in the 19th century, wherein every citizen who is being prosecuted by the government right now with the customs and usages in the court systems may not obtain anybody other than an agent of the government, and that is in the state of Texas, for example, those who are licensed to practice law are officers of the court. Now, I can assure you what I'm looking for is I'm looking for someone here in Travis County or somewhere in Texas that will become sheriff and go right down to the state capitol and do an investigation and find out every attorney who's serving in the legislature and immediately have them arrested, because every officer who is serving the United States takes an oath to uphold the United States Constitution.
Well, I do thank you for your comments. I'm going to have to let you go because I have some other folks on the line.
Thank you.
But as far as your ideas about the bullets and the Bible, I can understand your ideology on that. And again, I do think that the Second Amendment is very crucial for us in our country here and our struggle against this types of adversity. But I would say ultimately the pen is mightier than the sword, and changing public opinion is key one. That's step one, and that's what's really, really going to make the fundamental difference in this country is if we can change public opinion, change thinking, change thought, and that's going to help us propel ourselves in the right direction. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
I was about to say she didn't have a clue, but she really does have a clue.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said I was about to say she didn't have a clue, but as I listened to her, she does have a clue.
Oh, no, she's pretty knowledgeable. I've heard her talk
thing,
on the television before.
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me?
Not too well. If you could speak up a little bit, that'd be helpful.
I've turned down my TV. Every nation on the earth, except for the United States, has turned in their guns, or rather, they've taken their guns from them. We're the last ones left.
Right,
I don't know if
true.
you knew that yet or not. And it's coming.
It may well be coming, and that's something that we have to understand and be ready for, just in case. We have to be vigilant.
Everybody should have revolted with the thumb scanning and started from there, and just said they can't arrest all of us.
That's true. You know what? And I think it's going to be hard to get your individual camps, geared up for these individual things like the thumb scamming and national ID cards and stuff like that. It may actually have to come down to where they are rounding folks up, if it comes down to a scenario like that, FEMA camp situation.
Most of the people are sheep. They just follow along with whatever they're told.
True.
People follow whatever the media tells them. The media's...
That's very true. People are very much
80% of the time
manipulated.
is never right.
I'm sorry?
I said the media 80% of the time is never right.
That's true, but I think that, if people get backed up against the wall enough, or if we can do a big enough campaign to change public opinion, that we can make a difference. I know it's a ways to go yet, and we're only making small inroads, but I'd say really within the last 10 years, if you see through the internet and through access television and some of these different media outlets, there has been motion in the right direction, that we have made change.
Okay. I just want to. I am involved in the government somehow. I'm not going to tell you how, but the whole thing done, and it was called Operation 911, and it was all done for money and all to pass the terrorist bill. It was known weeks and weeks before it even happened. Actually, a year before it even happened, about the Twin Towers on 9/11.
I'm sorry, what's that again?
Operation 911.
As far as the World Trade Center bombing?
It was called Operation 911. That's why it was on 9/11. They knew a year before it happened that it was going to happen.
Well, I'm pretty well convinced.
George Bush is at the bottom of it. People need to be, that's what's come to light. Just like the Enron situation, he's at the bottom of that. Hopefully it'll come to light, but I doubt it. They'll protect him.
Well, thank you for your comments. I do appreciate that. We do really need to kind of be aware of some of these things. And true, there have been a lot of things that have been going on behind the scenes that have enabled new laws to be enacted and what have you.
Can I say something else? Is that people probably don't know? The Bin Ladens and the Bushes have a corporation together.
Correct.
Osama Bin Laden has been a CIA agent for like the past 15, 20 years.
Right, correct. That seems to be
Come
pretty
on,
apparent.
people, wake up and think. It's coming.
Well, again, I would say if we can at least get our public opinion straight, first of all, and educate ourselves.
People would band together and do it, yes, but people will not do it. They're too stupid. They're sheep.
There are a lot of sheeple out there, that's true, but, and that's some people's paradigms.
They can't be bothered until it's too late, and that's what really pisses me off.
Well, I understand. Thank you for your call. I appreciate your comments. Have a nice evening. That's true. There are a lot of people that are kind of part of the unthinking masses and what have you, but if we can move together collectively, we can change these things, and that's what I'm trying to get across people, that we are in a new world order, whether we like it or not. There's no two ways about it. And as to, how we progress, it's really up to us as to how we make this new world order. If we say no collectively, then all of this sketchiness is going to have to fall by the wayside. If we can get to the point where we have more, understanding on a worldwide basis, those sorts of things, then we can make real progress. It's going to take each individual, though, stepping up to the challenge in his own area and making things happen in his own area, not being afraid to speak up and not being afraid to, to take a stand on these issues. Some of these things are very controversial, but I would like to emphasize that we can make a difference. There's definitely the superstructure that is existing, what is existing now with both the United Nations and this new world order that we're part of. We can use, once these forces of evil, so-called, once those that wish to enslave us have lost power, then we can take advantage of what's left over, the remains, and we can build on that. We can build a positive new world order situation that will be for the many, where free will and right human relations and goodwill are part of everybody's are available to everybody. It's not going to be just for the few, it'll be for everyone. And that's the key. Again, we are in a new world order. I've got a couple more calls I'm not going to be able to get to because we're really quickly running out of time, but I do thank all of the people that have called to take the time to comment this evening. I'd like to thank my producer, Chris, for commanding the helm of the Starship Esoterica, and I'd like to encourage you folks to stay tuned for Chris Athanas and the Reality Expander Show coming up next. Again, our new world order is here. It has to be what we collectively want it to be, not what a few people are imposing upon us. I'd like to end by saying, Christ in you, the hope of glory. Thank you, Austin. Have a nice evening.